Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Global Bharat Movement Business Innovation Roadshows presented by SAP in association with TV9 Network. This is the inaugural roadshow. We have tons of things lined up for you in the course of the evening, but we begin by understanding the Global Bharat Movement. The Global Bharat Movement was conceived by SAP India about 3 years ago in the peak of the pandemic, in the darkness of the lockdowns. That's when the genesis of Global Bharat Movement took place. And the principal reason, the main aim, so to speak, was to reach out to mid-market companies in India, the middle India of corporate India, to mid-market companies, and an outreach program, essentially, giving them all kinds of support, from tech support to mentorship, you name it, an outreach program. And that was the bedrock of it all. And that's the reason why we are gathered here this evening. So, keeping all this in mind, the Global Bharat Movement by SAP, presented by SAP in association with TV9 Network, is now taking things a notch higher, taking things essentially to the next level. We have somebody very important who's going to tell us how this is going to work. All this big talk, all this big picture talk, how is it going to work with you? How is it going to work with the mid-market companies of India? No better company than SAP, and nobody better from SAP than Rajiv Singh, Vice President Mid-Market, SAP Indian Subcontinent. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Rajiv Singh.
Such a great gathering here. And welcome to the launch event of SAP Global Bharat Movement, a business innovation roadshow in association with TV9. Global Bharat program from SAP is actually our ode to Indian businesses that have shown not only withstood the shocks of recent macroeconomic issues, but also has shown resilience and stood very firm to become self-reliant. This is our ode to such organizations, to Indian business, all of you sitting here in this room. Over next 90 days, we will be covering length and breadth of India. We'll be going to 25 high potential business clusters of India. We'll be talking to thousands of customers who are mid-market organizations. And in this journey, we will have business experts, industry associations, and technical experts to share ideas with you so that you can innovate with and unlock the potential of cloud technology and future-proof your business. What is Global Bharat for us? For us, SMEs represent Bharat, the true Bharat for us. And we think with India's growing economy, we can really take these SMEs global. And this is how we came up with this name concept of Global Bharat. Now, why we are talking about some of these issues, while we're talking about this, and everybody's talking about India economy becoming really growing fast, really becoming resilient. There are 3 or 4 indicators that I want to share with you, which is really showing that India can become a really superpower in times to come, and not only mid-term, but long-term as well. First of the indicators that we are seeing is what we call as credit growth, the non-agriculture credit offtake. Now, this is an indicator which shows that how much capital is there in the industry where SMEs or industries can really invest back in their business. Now, this growth, India has seen 13% growth year on year. And if you look at the contribution from mid-market segment, it's grown at 29%, which means that mid-market industries, companies are investing capital in their business at a much faster pace. Some of the industries, of course, are food processing, chemicals that are seeing this kind of healthy growth. What it means, and what it means for us, is that Indian economy is in buoyancy. We are seeing great momentum, and as SAP, we are witnessing this kind of growth when we interact with some of our customers. Second, of course, not to mention GDP. We are expected to grow between 6.5% to 7.1%, and everybody knows that this is something which India is better than many of the economies in the world. But what is very special here is that this growth is fueled by domestic demand, and which is rare, and which is first of its kind, which is happening in India, right? And some of the industries that are really going to grow up for us is CPG, chemical, pharma, food processing, etc., right? And we believe that these local industries are going to be buoyant for next few quarters to come. Third indicator that I want to talk about is inflation. While world is grappling with double-digit inflation, India has been able to really control inflation recently, and we believe by end of this year, the inflation will be tapering off. What it means for business is that we'll have enough capital to really think about innovation in technology. So there'll be some capital which we left, which we were fearing due to inflation, which will go off, which we can reinvest in technology. And of course, our strategy on crude oil, etc., has really helped us counter this inflation. Fourth, needless to say, the GST investment, GST collection for India has been record high. We are collecting almost 1.5 lakh crores per month for past 10 months. And we are going to exceed our budget, India's stated budget, easily in this financial year. What it means is that India's economy is not only growing, but it's also becoming economically resilient. For any such events, macroeconomic events that happen, we'll be able to absorb that shock much better. Many of you would know that after 2000, 52% of Fortune 500 companies ceased to exist. Now, and second data is even more interesting, that from 1955 to 2011, to reach a valuation of 1 billion, Fortune 500 companies took 20 years. And what's happening today? New age companies are taking only 4 years to reach $1 billion valuation. How do you think this global Bharat vision can be brought to life? And there's a study done by McKinsey, which is a very interesting study, which says that India is a unique position where there are lakhs of small and micro enterprises and few thousand large enterprises, which contribute to the lion's share of GDP. Now, if India has to become a $10 trillion economy by 2030, that's our aspiration, almost 10,000 of smallest enterprises have to become medium enterprises, and 1,000 of the medium enterprises have to become large enterprises. And that's when you need to fill the missing middle that we call it. We do not have enough medium, mid-segment enterprises in India. And this is where the technology or the smallest organization can have to move to medium space, fill the missing middle. Technology can play a big role. And we have partnered with almost 9,000 plus customers in India, have been part of their journey, who have traversed this journey from being very micro organizations to medium or medium to large enterprises. In the end, I just wanted to call out that I'm super excited on this launch and look forward to meeting so many of you over the course of next 90 days, where we'll be visiting 25 industry clusters, meeting thousands of customers. Thank you.
Now, we have a very special gentleman joining us on this evening, the inaugural Global Bharat Movement Roadshow. And I'm going to leave the floor open to Dr. Pramod Verma, ex-Chief Architect, Aadhaar and India Stack, and CTO of X-Step Foundation. Dr. Pramod Verma, welcome to the evening, and requesting you to take over from here on and deliver the keynote address. And ladies and gentlemen, of this keynote address is Next Decade of Indian Economy and the Role of Technology. Dr. Pramod Verma, all yours.
Thank you so much. Societies are going digital, right? Everything, digital technology is going to drive manufacturing, individual lifestyles, financial inclusion, healthcare, telemedicine, access to healthcare, education, everything is driven by technology. But we don't think about infrastructure quite like physical infrastructure that creates equity and equal opportunity for everyone to participate. And that's a very, very interesting idea that India has been leading the world with. And India is solving a lot of our problems by what we call laying this digital infrastructure. Very important to understand what happens in last 10 years. 2009, we had less than 20% of India had bank accounts. Less than 20% had bank accounts. And in 2009, we were also spending 50 billion US dollars on subsidy programs because there was nobody had bank account, because nobody had digital addressability or identity that is nationally unique and usable. We had massive diversion and leakage. And this was almost unacceptable to the country that nearly 40% of this 50 billion US dollars is going down to the middlemen, or it's not the right people who are getting it. And that was big concern. In 2020, this is the report from Bureau of International Settlements. And the report says India would have taken 46 years, nearly 5 decades, to get from under 20 percentage bank account to 80 plus percentage. To give more than 80 percentage people bank account, India would have taken 5 decades normally. But India took flat 6 years. So it's an amazing journey. Nobody in the world could believe that how India managed to create such exponential financial inclusion journey. At the same time, India also converted our $50 billion, by the way. That was in 2009. This time today, we do roughly about $100 billion every year. 100 billion US dollars. 80 to 100 billion is actually gone down to benefits transfer. Out of that, India now runs world's largest direct benefits transfer program, DBT. 860 million people, 86 crore people have bank account attached to their Aadhaar. This transformation also meant we made massive savings because it was going now directly to the bank account. In the entire digital India, Aadhaar plus UPI plus DigiLocker plus everything put together, India has only spent $1.5 billion. That is less than 10,000 crore. This is the reason why India was the only country in the world at scale that was able to actually send directly during COVID lockdown money to people's bank account. Of course, it's all started with Aadhaar. Today we have 1.36 billion people, 136 crore people have Aadhaar. I'm very sure I don't have to talk to you about UPI. As an architect of UPI and helping National Payment Corporation building UPI, it's been the most satisfying 6 years of journey. In 2016, we launched UPI, and last month we did 8 billion transactions. But the beauty of UPI, which many people have not understood, is that the same UPI is used by 300 million smartphone users, which we are all familiar with because UPI is associated with smartphone. But interestingly, 250 million, that is 25 crore people with no phones, use UPI. And this is why India is now the fastest growing fast payment or instant payment system. Last year, in fact, 2021, we overtook China plus UK plus US all put together. We do more real-time payment transaction, and we believe we are not even reached. We have a long way to go. Last year, we launched what's called world's first financial data network. That means you as an SME or you as an individual now have the control of accessing all your financial data, GSTN data, tax data, savings data, FD data, bank statements, mutual fund statements, insurance statements, credit statements, everything through machine readable and digitally assigned fashion. It's no more a PDF documents to be printed. You can actually access it through something called an account aggregator. You can sign up. There are 3 or 4 account aggregators live already. Many of them are actually coming alive. You can choose any account aggregator like UPI app and sign up. And when you sign up, you can actually link your accounts and directly consent to share that data with another entity. Why would you want to do it? The biggest use case of this, which is opening up, is SME credit. With this, the cost is going to be dramatically low. So we are moving towards a low cost, high trust environment. When you move towards a low cost, high trust environment, for a bank, giving 50,000 or 1 lakh loan will still become viable and almost instant. And of course, on top of that, we are building the world's first attempt at providing SMEs and small businesses direct commerce opportunity, not lending access to lending opportunity, not bank accounts. First time without a big intermediary in the middle. It is very important to understand what we are doing with ONDC. ONDC is Open Network for Digital Commerce. It is allowing SMEs and consumer to connect directly for discovery, order placement, shipping, and so on using a decentralized network. What is decentralized? Means no single company in the middle. No company is in the middle collecting commissions. It is important because this way, every SME, every small homestay or tourist attraction, or every taxi or mobility network can directly connect to the grid. If you really look at it, what is India doing? We are bringing policy, we are building infrastructure, we are also bringing massive innovation, the startups, innovators, and many of you to be able to actually innovate on top of this. This trifecta coming together, creating a beautiful game for India to drive both inclusion and innovation at scale. We have 950 million people, adults, 1.4 billion people, 100 million people, if you 10 million SMEs, and nano, one person enterprises, proprietaries, and so on. We must provide equity and formalization quite like the top of the society. And it has to be a conscious effort. And India is creating this systematically, quite like highways. We are building digital highways for all of you to innovate and make sure that everybody gets equitable opportunity. And it is going to be as big or bigger than internet. UPI is just the beginning, as you are seeing. It's exciting and very, very high possibilities of innovation, and while keeping inclusion and equity in our mind. And we should make sure we are not monopolized, we are in control, and we are creating reasonable level playing field for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pramod Verma, for that fascinating keynote address. I'm going to take the mic, and if you have any questions, please put your hands up. I'm going to get the mic to you guys.
I'm Pranav from Plus Cash, a fintech startup. Actually, I have a question around open banking. Like few players, like they are using banking backend infrastructure to building a lot of top-end solution around kind of banking, neo-banking kind of setting.
Yes.
That's very much limited to few players in India. I mean, are you guys thinking of democratizing that as well?
I think it's a collective conversation and design, but I agree with you. I think we could really we could be looking at many more banking APIs to be open. I will definitely take this up along with National Payment Corporation of India leadership, and when I go to Mumbai, I'll definitely push for this. And if we launch any volunteer community, please join, and let's create open APIs that allows all of you to innovate and create reasonable level playing fields beyond the bilateral conversation that is happening today, as you said.
This is Krishna from Finbox. So we build embedded finance stack for lenders and marketplaces. So in the same lines of ONDC, we are trying to build this network of lenders and marketplaces. The only challenge what we have seen is that in agri-techs especially, when they wanted to do farmer financing, we are facing a lot of challenge from the lenders, right? There's a lot of stiff resistance coming from the lenders because there is no digital footprint of the farmer, right? There are no data points which we can use in farmer financing.
Correct.
So I need you to suggest it to the government, or whenever there's a meetings, we construct things like how we have done it for Stack and all. We need to have something coming for this underserved segment, especially farmer financing and all. Agri-tech plays a crucial role, as you are aware, right? And if we are able to provide them sustainable credit, we'll be able to build more robust economy.
Just to let you know that I am part of the Agri-Stack committee, and there is significant design right now that's going on. And it's next couple of months, please expect open workshops done by Agriculture Ministry, engaging many of you for feedback and so on. So it deals with, again, 2 or 3 key fundamentals. Identities, because if you don't trust who the other person is, there's no meaning to doing it. So identities for property records, identity for farmers, identity for entities and so on in the farming sector. We are creating asset layer for farmers. Assets include data, as you said, digital footprints, and assets, the assets that they have, or the last crop that they sold. None of these are credentialized today. What does it mean? Is that my history is not provable by me. So that when I go back, everybody, because no way to verify your past, right? So every past record, we are going to be digitizing and credentializing it. So that allows the digital footprints to kick in, And then market opportunity is going to be opened up quite like UPI. We are opening up UFSI, Agri Open Network, and as well as quite like UHI in the healthcare and ONDC in the commerce. We are going to open up market opportunity for, say, buy and sell and credit opportunity. And I know we are running short of time, so
Yes.
thank you so much for the opportunity.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Pramod Verma, for taking time out to be with us here. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Dr. Pramod Verma for the fascinating insights, fascinating last sort of 45 minutes that he has given us. Thank you so much, sir. Another very special gentleman joining us for a short tete-a-tete with you, not me. I'm going to call upon Mr. Vinod Keni, investor, mentor, to join us, and he's going to be giving us a very special address. And the theme of his address is the funding winter, navigating new challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Vinod Keni.
This and the current pace at which it is going is the pace at which venture capital really continues to grow, build, and invest, irrespective of what happens in the cycles, right? So we go through those up cycles where we reach that 35, 36 billion, but then we also go through those down cycles. But then across the board, there's always an average, right? And that average is what we are actually seeing. So for all of you sitting here who are thinking about going out and calling up, your investor friends, venture capitalists, private equity guys, any of them, please remember there's no funding winter. We have, I think this was a number that today I was talking to my lawyers and they mentioned, there is 16 billion, which is a B, $16 billion in domestic capital that was raised by venture capitalists over the last 2-3 years that has to be deployed. So the way venture capital works is, I start a fund, I go to all the rich people like you guys, I raise money, and then I go and look for exciting startups, I go invest in them, hopefully they'll turn profitable, they'll give me a great exit, and then when I get the exit, I return the money back to you with profit and then take a piece of the profit, right? That's how it works. So if I've raised money, and that money is actually commitments that have come from limited partners, and limited partners are, like I said, rich folks like you, institutions, banks, insurance companies, pension funds, all of them, I have to deploy it. I can't really send it back. Because if I send it back, then I can't really go back and do another fund. So I have 16 billion, so that's the number that is actually sitting, which is actually raised by domestic venture capital, and that has to be deployed. So that's one number. The second is there are close to about 3,500 VCs and private equity investors who are active in India. Imagine there are 3,500 VCs and private equity investors who are active in India. Now, that doesn't take into consideration the fact that there are family offices. Family offices are primarily investment pools of very wealthy individuals who go and try and create their own funds, right? So family offices, both US, Europe, the Middle East, there's a fairly large number of those that are also out there very actively looking for deals. So what that says is that there is enough capital, there's enough interest, there are enough of us who are looking to really invest into companies. But there's a qualifier, there's a caveat, and that but is what I'm going to briefly talk about, right? So one, what has happened is the crazy ideas that were all out there, they are all now being questioned, right? We have now come to a point where we are now starting to look at business fundamentals. We are starting to look for profitability. Earlier it was like, array, there's an e-commerce company or somebody's going and doing something in a B2B SaaS business. He's going to go and build this and he's going to go and sell this to companies. He's going to spend 100 rupees to acquire a customer, but that customer is only going to pay 5 rupees. All of that, I think, is not going to work anymore. So for all of you who are out there trying to raise money, make sure you have researched, you have done your homework on one, how good your product is, and most important, and this is what I actually tell people repeatedly, that the product is something that your customers will buy, not free, something that people will actually pay. There has to be a value ascribed to it. The moment it actually becomes free, it doesn't work, especially in India. India is very value driven, right? We are very price conscious. So from that perspective, if you're looking at building businesses, build business, and I'm sure a lot of you here are mid-sized businesses, and that's what Rajiv talked about, is the ability for you to actually be able to charge and be able to get customers to buy into it. That's one thing that you need to actually start doing. The other aspect of all of this is to make sure that you have good, sound business models. The other thing that I also want to leave behind with you is the fact that this is actually one of the best times to start a business. You have the government, and Dr. Pramod Verma talked about it. You have the government which is facilitating a lot of things. There's digital infrastructure that's out there that actually supports a lot of new innovation. The other thing that I also want to leave behind with you is the fact that we have a middle class that's growing. It's growing like gangbusters, right? We actually see a 7 to 10% increase in the middle class year over year. No other country can think of that. And think of the aspirations and the buying power of this middle class as they come and start looking for products and services, which is an opportunity, and that's what we all want to look for. So think about some of those aspects when you're thinking about actually going out there and looking to build a business. So people who are building business, and a lot of you here who have got businesses that are already running, you actually now stand a very good chance of being able to attract and being able to get the ear of the investor, because the crazy ideas are all gone. We don't really have harebrained ideas anymore. And I think that's actually part of the funding winter, was the cleansing of the system that's also happened. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Vinod Kenny. Thank you so much, Vinod, for that. Now we're going to get into the discussion mode of the evening. We're going to be beginning with our first panel discussion. Obviously, that's the reason why you're seeing chairs being placed on the stage. It's a panel discussion. The theme of it, creating a sustainable space for transport on land and beyond. Now, introducing the panelists for this particular discussion, the first panel. Mr. Vinod Kenny, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to request you to put your hands together for all the panelists who are going to be taking the stage. Mr. Vinod Kenny, after that wonderful address. We have Mr. Arun Maheshwari, CIO of Alti Green. We have Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, co-founder of Digantra, joining us. Tanveer Ahmed, thank you so much. And then we have, of course, Mr. Manish Prasad, Head of Industries of SAP India, joining us on this panel. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Mr. Manish Prasad. Vinod, so talk to us in terms of how ready do you think at this stage in the year 2023 India is for sustainable mobility?
I think India started developing this a little ahead of time. And I think 2022 is when it actually started becoming a lot more accepted. And I think the great aspect of this is there's a lot of infrastructure that is now being built for EV. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of innovative solutions that are now coming up for what I call as Bharat. Things are around EV that can actually work in rural areas, for example, not just necessarily cities. There's also a lot more that's coming, which is indigenously designed software and systems, rather than just replicating what has come from, let's say, China or somewhere else. So you're starting to see a lot more innovation, but innovation which is primarily catering to the needs and the demand of what India really wants. And a lot of this is innovation which is truly cutting edge, to the point where I think some of this will actually start getting accepted in other developed countries as well as other developing economies as well.
I'm going to take this across to Arun Maheshwari. Talk to us in your own experience. E-vehicles and sustainable cars and green mobility, it's been spoken about for more than a decade now. But I think the reality is catching up faster than we think. Do we have the right ecosystem for a mass adoption? From a mass adoption perspective, where do you think India is?
So I think, clearly what Vinod said, the market is now moving in the right direction. Infrastructure also is moving in the right direction. There's innovation going on. Certainly there could be more there. But I think mentally a lot of people have now accepted EV as the way to go. And if not this year, next year or the year after, I think a lot of people will move and infrastructure will catch up. Infrastructure always stays a little behind, but it'll catch up.
Tanveer Ahmed, my question to you is that when it comes to adoption of sustainable mobility, green mobility, electric vehicles, the question is also affordability. The reason why EV cars or the E versions of cars did not sell for the longest time was because the cost difference from a diesel to an EV was incredible, and middle class India was not going to be willing to fork up that much. But from an affordability perspective, do you think we're now far closer than before?
I mean, being India such a conscious market, EV always, a customer, whenever you look to buy, they do the cost to benefit analysis in their own way. We all are from, middle class families. So the excitement is there to buy an EV. But when it comes to, still large scale adoption, I think all the indicators are going in the right way. There is a massive increase in infrastructure. So I recently checked the Tata's EV charging infrastructure. Apparently, I was amazed to see that almost 90% of Karnataka is covered. So that's going in the right direction. And I think there are massive efforts even going towards reducing the battery cost. So I think, yeah, we are moving in the right direction.
Right. Manish Prasad, now talk to us from SAP India's perspective. The startups, the companies, the mid-market companies that you've dealt with in the space. In terms of innovation.
Coming back to SAP, most of you understand that we are a German company. One of the genesis, for the fastest moving industries where we started is the automotive sector, right? And what we are seeing today is there's a complete shift which is happening from a solution standpoint. I think all of you can see Rise with SAP. I think that's the foundational block through which we are asking SMEs, we are talking about mid-market, we are talking about tier 1, OEMs, we are tier 2, tier 3, battery manufacturers, new entrants which are coming in, we are talking about hydrogen fuels which are going to come and impact the market. Anything which helps us reduce the carbon emission is something which is kind of rapidly increasing our innovation agenda within this market, right? And that starts with our foundational principle of Rise with SAP, brings in a lot of resilient supply chain. And I think we need to understand this, that when we look at sustainability in the true context, we are going beyond scope 1 and scope 2 and looking into scope 3 emissions, which essentially means that the entire supply chain in an auto segment or in any segment which creates a lot of carbon emission in that segment has to be looked upon in terms of how do we reduce the carbon footprint across the entire value chain. And I think those are the solutions that SAP is developing in conjunction with our partners. We have an IO Foundry through which we call startups. We look at all these solutions which are available. We look at in terms of how do we increase the capacity of batteries, how do we manage the charging stations, how do we build the customers, how do we create as a service model.
Talk to us about the kind of activity that we've seen in the space sector. So many startups coming up, a lot of interest being generated, especially over the last, say, 3 to 5 years.
The entire autonomous vehicles, right? You are talking about spaceships, light vehicles, right? Aircrafts, which are probably going to kind of move in an autonomous world, right? So there's a lot of effort which is going in terms of creating those connected, and autonomous, space vehicles out there. The second thing that is just coming in a big way is obviously the consumption of hydrogen, right? I think we all know that, apart from land, the next piece where there's a lot of carbon footprint that we create is through the aircrafts and the aerospace area that we are talking about. I think that's the second space we are looking in terms of how does the hydrogen fuels and the entire piece kind of comes in. The third piece, which I think is extremely important in that context, is the inclusion of AI ML and the intelligence, cognitive play that will come in terms of the entire facet, starting from design, bringing in circular economy there, being able to kind of recycle whatever is coming in to create more and more of sustainable future, right? So it's all about being able to get into space where we have not been able to traditionally manage, and that's where autonomous spaceships are coming in. We are talking about hydrogen fuels, which will help us kind of reduce the carbon footprint, and we'll see a hyper acceleration of AI and ML engines coming in every space, in every area that one manages in the aerospace industry as such.
Vinod Kenny, space is a very exciting sector, aerospace and space per se. Talk to us in terms of, how India is positioned at this stage to leapfrog in the sector every other country around the world.
Thanks to what ISRO has done and the ability for ISRO to actually throw its labs and testing facilities open to work with entrepreneurs. There are institutes like the IITs that are doing a fair amount of work in this space. A lot of this is now looking at how do I really leverage the expertise that ISRO had in making it affordable. And from that perspective, building space programs, not just satellite launches. A big area is space debris. How do I really clean up the space? newer ways of being able to look at short distance flight, looking at hydrogen as a way of actually being able to use it for space. Some of those also going in with newer systems that can actually manage satellite communications, especially commercial satellite communications, considering the fact that we use satellite communication for almost everything, including our cars now at this point. Affordability is something that we are working on, and that actually, for people who follow the segment will really understand, we are now becoming the go-to market and the go-to country for a lot of these emerging countries that also want to actually look at space and actually want to start building their own space programs. We have companies here that use 3D printing technology to actually go ahead and launch satellites so quickly that you don't have to wait for traditional space launches to happen. All of that is happening in India. And I think from that perspective, that's now starting to open up markets from other countries that actually want to actually go and build their own space programs as well.
Tanvir, with perceptions coming in from everywhere, if I were to quickly ask you, do you think that India is not too far away from its own SpaceX?
10 years back, space was impossible. Right now, space is hard, and they are on their way to make transition that from space is sort of easy. So that's the trajectory they are going in. But SpaceX has taken its own unique place, and I think creating another replica of SpaceX or anything on those sorts is unrealistic in many ways. But there is a lot of activities even in the launch segment that is not been solved by SpaceX. So that's where a lot of companies are in India and outside India getting towards. Across sector, we call it and few space jargons here. Upstream sector is putting stuff into space. Midstream sector and maintaining infrastructure in space, and downstream sector is utilizing the data gathered by these space assets to benefit humanity. So I think all three verticals there are tremendous opportunity. Phenomenal market growth and incredible startups and larger companies who are entering into this.
Tell us in terms of the growth trajectory for the sector, what are you witnessing on the ground? And and are you again looking at it, the growth in that sector as fast as India's adoption of sustainable mobility on road?
If you or other three pieces there, or three fundamental blocks one would call. One is the entire travel part, which is the air travel. I think that scale and size will continue to increase, and we are seeing the number of aircrafts an Air India or an Indigo Interglobe Aviation is putting together. I think you will see a humongous change there, right? And where people say that even a common man can fly, I think that dream is obviously becoming true, right? So I think that's one space or one part of the space which probably is more tangible in our mind. The second part is the research part, right? Which is where the ISROs come in and and we put satellites for all the humanity related and the entertainment purposes. I think that space would probably have more and more people coming in. Private players will come and kind of play a role there. And the third piece, which is in terms of the space exploration part, right? Which is where you talked about that, we can probably create that in 1/5, 1/6 of that cost. I think that's the space where we have an inherent advantage, simply because of the fact that we know how to use recycling. We know how to crack the problem of being able to look at all the cost components which are costly and alternative sources that will come in terms of making that space or that part of space much more meaningful and even cost competitive.
Mr. Arun Maheshwari, in your experience, you've seen the state governments in India unveil their first ever EV policies. How much of government effort do you think has gone in for the mass adoption of sustainable mobility, and how much more do you think needs to be done?
So I think government has an important role because till especially batteries get cheaper. And today the challenge with batteries getting cheaper is that the cells have to be imported. And secondly, you have to import high quality cells. You can't do this quick and dirty business because then you'll get a burning vehicle.
You can do jugaad, but only up to a point.
Exactly. So I think governments will have a very important role. The EV policies do help because Governments themselves are a big customer. They adopt, they buy. So all of that is very important. And I
Right.
think Karnataka is also, the EV policy is a very attractive policy.
Right.
And, a little bit of subsidy will probably go a long way.
It's been a fascinating conversation, but I'm afraid, I'm requesting the audience to put together the hands for this wonderful gentlemen who have come for the evening. And Vinod Keni, Arun Maheshwari, Tanveer, and Manish, thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us here on this discussion. And with that, a wrap on this one. Moving on with the program. Panel discussion number 2, driving business governance and compliance with technology. The CXO's perspective. And for that, it's a very special panel. The good thing is that I won't be the one moderating this. We have the entire panel in conversation with Vinod Palakil, Regional Director of SAP India for this. So requesting him to please join us on the stage. And let me now call out the panelists for this particular discussion. We have Mr. Vishwanath Rao, CFO, Immunil Therapeutics, joining us. We have Mr. Ramana Rao, CV, CFO, Sami Sabinsa Group, now joining us. And Prem Antony, CDO, St. John's National Academy of Health Sciences, joining us.
My first question to Mr. Vishwanath Rao is, post-pandemic, again, we saw a lot of changes in our personal lives, in the way organizations actually worked, right? A lot of changes came in. What, according to you, is that one change, say in the likes of, say, just as an example, maybe the supply chain disruption, right? So in those lines, what is that one change that you feel will stay permanently, right? And how do you think that actually, puts an impetus or effect on the governance, the corporate governance and compliance?
Sure. Thank you, Vinod. I think we all, I was hearing to the previous panel discussions and the other talks, we touched upon the digital adoption, we touched upon the communication, the space, and all that. But I think innovation in healthcare was left to this panel, right? And there's a lot happening in innovation in India. So I represent a company called Immunil, where we are innovating. It's a right tag, right? Global Bharat Movement. We are innovating for global. We are working on frugal innovation. We are working on the blood cancer space where today affordability, the innovation, the results of innovations is far from affordability for masses in countries like India. So our organization is working on that. And post-pandemic, there has been a lot of education and awareness among common men, common people that one is, yes, everyone need access to healthcare, the right healthcare, but also resilience and how this innovation is connected and also work within an organization. So that the resilience within organizations, the startups or be it even large corporates, the resilience and how the CXOs drive the investments in these space, I think it's going to be, there'll always be a line item or a budget allocated, how an organization looks into its digital transformation. We've all been going through that, but I think there is more focus now. So healthcare companies innovating, frugally innovating, but getting access at affordable prices, a good healthcare, I think that's going to stay for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in line with, thank you for the thoughts, what Dr. Verma said, right? Creating a level playing field. My next question is to Mr. Ramana Rao. What trends that you actually foresee, right, which is going to change the way organizations is going to work, according to you?
So post-pandemic, we have seen companies adopting digitalization. We conduct a lot of meetings through digital platform, virtual meetings, and a lot of digital commerce is happening. We are adopting digital commerce in our organization, which was earlier like a physical mode. Now we are adopting digital commerce. Payment process through UPI, that is changing rapidly. More and more people are adopting UPIs. So then we are seeing, technologies like machine learning and, compliance governance systems through SAP to meet our governance requirements.
When you were going through the digital transformation, how does it impact the business governance? And you as a function, being a CFO, right? How does it make? Does it make your job easy? Does it make your job tough? Does it bring in a lot of more challenges or ease a lot of challenges?
Yeah, initial adaptation is a bit challenging, so it is a huge change management for us. People used to, work in the traditional methods of working, but we have to bring the change management and adopt the technologies. So once we adopt it, it becomes easy to comply with. It is helping the organization to meet the governance requirements.
As a CDO of your organization, right? How does your role play into digital transformation? How does it imply?
Okay. So the organization that I'm working for is St. John's National Institute of Health Sciences. So we are a non-profit hospital in Bangalore, and we are one of the oldest, and this year we are celebrating the Diamond Jubilee. So our vision statement is pretty clear. It says that a world where healthcare is even available even to the poorest. Right? So looking at that, we try to understand the focus areas that we need to digitalize. Okay, so one of the areas is, I would say, accessibility to healthcare, then pre and post patient experience, and addressing the lack of resources, then looking at, I would say, supply chain, okay, and also the cost of care, right? So these areas we want to address using digital. A typical example that I would give you is, a nurse's job is basically I would say, documented and laid out, right? So basically in any of the hospitals, right? So you have nurses doing the other jobs like collecting documents, running around things to make it happen, and basically since the process is very lengthy and all that. So we want to basically digitalize all these aspects so that the care is given to the patient. The nurse's focus has to be the patient, not something that they can run around with, right? So these are some of the areas we want to attack. And taking over the IT in St. John's during the month of April. So what I basically did is created a different organization structure. First thing is I renamed IT into Digital Center for Healthcare. So that I want people to be closer to the business. They need to know what is happening at the ground level, right? Then I created different verticals, and two verticals that are in focus today is the employee digital experience and the patient digital experience, or the customer digital experience. We are trying to build these digital touch points with the patients and with the employees so that the flow of information is seamless, and so that we can take the right decisions.
If you have to give a couple of advices to a lot of emerging businesses here, in terms of what are the things, a couple of things that they need to keep in mind, right? So if you can throw some light on those points.
Sure. We do also follow, the set themes, right? Innovate fast or fail fast. Put your money in the right place, but see through that whether it's yielding results. So for that, governance is very critical. You don't need to spend a lot of money if you are in an innovation space. You have certain milestones, evaluate. If it's not working, please pivot fast, right? And that comes out of proper governance. And you need to have an integrated system like we sit on SAP, and that's been very helpful. Once we integrate everything, you know those dashboards. It's not only your financial metrics, right? There are various other metrics which you need to evaluate. So, fail fast, put your money in the right bucket.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on for the evening, our final and most exciting session for the evening. And that is a fireside chat, as we call it, in these evenings. And the theme is digitizing traditional sales channels. And for that, we have another very special gentleman joining us for that fireside chat, and that would be Mr. Anirban Chakraborty, Vice President and Chief Architect, Sangeeta Mobile. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Anirban Chakraborty and joining him on this. I want to begin by asking, talk to us about operating in the Indian market as a traditional retail business. One way of calling it is omni-channel because nobody can avoid digital these days. Right. But you are fundamentally a traditional sales company and you're selling a product which is not exactly traditional, which is a modern, new age product, but it's evolved. It's had many evolutions in the last 2 decades. But tell us what it is like operating in this market where everybody's buying mobiles off websites.
Yeah, so I hope most of us know Sangeeta Mobiles, who have been in Bangalore tell me they bought their first mobiles from Sangeeta. So Sangeeta has been a very traditional company, 48 years old, yes, and has been doing pagers. It started with music systems, did pagers. As the IT revolution went, it went into mobile phones in 1998, one of the first companies in India to do that. And of late, okay, mobile phone revolution has actually taken off from, say, 2008, when I think the first year of 3G started coming. Of course, 3G finally came in 2012 full form, but started coming. And over the years, mobile phones sell like hotcakes. So let me tell you a fact that, see, most people, of course, he was saying that rich people like us, or Vinod Kenny was saying, but yes, we can afford an iPhone Pro Max. That's my richness. That's how I show that, yes, we have arrived. So mobile phones is something people are really crazy about. And you would not believe behind every mobile phone sold, 60% of the mobile phones sold in India are on finance. So all the small ticket, all the digital innovation we have been talking about, most of them get used in financing mobile phones. Earlier it used to be paper finance, and you definitely know Bajaj Finance being the leader in that era. Till I joined this company, I was not aware of the real Bharat, to be exact. So Sangeeta operates 800 stores, and the beauty of that is across the 4 states where we are in, that is AP, Telangana, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, most of the stores we have is within 2 hours of the 96% of the population residing there. And you would believe there is a huge demand in Tier 2, Tier 3, where online is still coming of age. But most people will walk in with a debit card or asking for finance, and you will log him into one of the finance companies, and then he or she will buy a mobile phone. So
let's now get into the real stuff. Yeah. Talk to us about challenge. Talk to us about transforming a traditional company through digitization.
Yeah, so again, Sangeeta Mobiles, like most companies, is a family-owned business, promoter-driven business. And so incidentally, I was the first person who joined as a professional in their 48-year history, who came through a headhunter and came and joined. So it comes with its fair share of challenges, because where mobile business being a very ROI, very penny-wise business, where you have to, everything has to be an ROI defined. And digital transformation, by the very nature of it, is not something which happens in a day. It takes its own sweet time, its own course of time to happen. And it is very difficult to keep traditional business believe in the journey while you are going through the digital transformation, while you are building the blocks, and to ensure that you don't go off-road. It's very easy to go off-road, because only after when you are fully done does the fruits start emerging. And we are now seeing, now my promoter comes and tells me, okay, now I believe in this, that what you are doing will make sense, and they have now the trust. But I know what journey I faced when I was building through it, because every day there is funding challenges, because you don't earn anything there. You have to take the money from the company, build it, but every day you do not have anything to show. What will you show? Code. Code has no meaning. It has no color. Only then when the final parts came together, when the customers came, when the customer asked, when we got a good experience, then the belief comes. So digital transformation in a traditional company is very, very difficult. And there is a people angle, there is a cultural angle, and of course there is a technological angle. My message would be that believe in it. Because until you believe in it and then you invest in it, it will not show the fruits. Because it's, as I said earlier, that it's very easy to go off track and do it half-heartedly. digital transformation is here to say it is not only about sales, it is about every aspect of the work we do, more efficient, more cost effective, and more automated, because automation is going to be there around us.
On that note, I'm going to wrap up this particular fireside chat. Anirban Chakraborty of Sangeeta Mobile. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Big round of applause for Anirban. And with that, I'm afraid we've come to the end of this wonderful evening. Thank you, all of you, for joining us on this evening.